So for step 20, checking the RC equipment, you can see that they want you to plug everything in. And the main reason for this is this servo needs to be in neutral. Sometimes the servo will move, and then if you attached all of this and then you've installed it in the car and it's wrong, it'll all go out of whack. So the main reason for doing a servo and a check is just making sure that everything's working and that the servo is in neutral. Now we're also going to be moving into bag D at this point. So for steps 20 to 33, we're going to want bag D, and bag D looks like that. And that came out of the big plastic bag of parts. So we're ready to go with that, and I will pull those things out. But here's what we're going to do. And I have already pulled out everything for this car. So this one came with a TA02 speed controller. You may find that if you got this car, it will come with a 1060 Hobby Wing. It just depends on where you bought it from, what part of the world you're in, etc. So that's the one I've got, the TA02 I'm using a Futaba receiver, and I'm using the 3P RKA system, so that's my radio, and we're going to be using a Futaba S3004 servo for this. So I'm going to plug everything in, and I mean, this is my 7.2 volt battery that I'm going to use for this. I'm going to plug it all in, and then we're going to check to see if this actually is in neutral, and if it is, we can then move on to the next step. Okay, so we are all plugged in. So I'm going to turn on the radio. We've got a red light. We know it's good to go. And here is our receiver switch. But what I want you to be looking for is on the servo. You can see the ridges around it. What we want to see is it move, and then it will move back into neutral. And once it's in neutral, we know we can actually attach all of the servo saver pieces to the servo without worrying about it. So here we go. We're going to turn it on. Did you see that? So it moved a bit because it was pretty much in neutral to begin with, but now we know it's fully in neutral. So if I turn that back off and then I turn it back on again, it does its little sort of shimmy to say, hey, we're ready to go, but that is now neutral. So I can turn all of this stuff off again and move everything out of the way, and you can see that we're going to now put on the servo horn and the servo saver stuff. And of course we've got our screws, which I'll pull out, but we'll attach that, and then we're good to go for the next step. So I've pulled together the 4 pieces that are going to be used to attach to the servo, but there's something I wanted to show you. When you get this Futaba servo, it comes in this box here. There is a servo horn and a screw that is already attached to the servo when you get it. So when you get to this step, they show you different screw options, but you're not supposed to use all of them, obviously, because it's got to be the one that fits in the servo. So depending on what servo you have, it's going to be a different screw. Now you can see with that one, it's a pretty small screw, pretty narrow, small head. So when you go into bag D, there is a big bag of screws in there, but there is also a small bag of screws. And in this bag, you're going to find the smaller one. And you're going to see that there's one here that's got the same kind of narrowness to the screw that came out of the servo when you originally get it. So you can see it's pretty close to the same. And if I put this on the screw here, the 2x6x10, it's a perfect fit, and it's a small one. Because the other thing you got to make note of is, you see how that screw is a tapping screw? So we're going to need to match a tapping screw to go back in it. And there's only two options, an MD4 or an MD5. And the MD5 is huge, and the MD5 is not in this smaller bag. So a lot of these other ones are matching up to the MD1 and MD2. So I know that this is going to be the screw that we're going to use to put this servo together. So let's do that. So what we're going to do here is we can see that the servo itself needs to face that direction where the cable is coming out that way. We need to place this one here on here and match it as best you can, because you see, like I said, there's the ridging and there's ridging on the other side. So this has to fit either one way or the other. And I want to say that might do it, actually. It's looking correct. Yeah. So you can see how that is now perpendicular to the servo, which is basically, you're going to see here, it's going to need to be. But that is in. Then we're going to take this black C3 piece, pop that on. Then it goes onto this piece here, which is going to look like that. And then we're going to screw it in. But before I put this piece on, the one thing I want to do is get that ball connector in place. So this is going to fit like that, and we're going to need to screw that in. So I'll grab our box wrench. In fact, I might just do it this way because it'll be easier to do. There we go. We can screw this in. Oh, just a sec. We're going to get that level as much as possible. There we go. So there we go. There's our ball connector on. Put this back on there. Then we have that little C8 piece. And then we have our new screw that we're going to put on in there. And have it go down the bottom. There we go. Grab our screwdriver. And there we go. So you can see that it needs to be completely up and down. So I can spin it, but we can do final adjustments later on once this is in, because we know we put it in neutral, and now we know that we can do fine-tuning adjustments to get it in the right spot. So that is done. So we have done the radio check, we've got our servo in neutral, and we've put our servo horn on. So now we can move on to step 21, which is attaching the steering servo to the main chassis.